So effective planning to me is a love letter to those that you leave behind. So that's important.
I think that's part of the procrastination is that people don't want to estate plan or they don't get into it because it involves talking about death.
Okay.
It involves
Yes.
talking about, planning for someone's transition.
Yeah.
And it's like, we start talking about the fear associated.
Welcome. This is For Better and Worth.
The podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you grow and build your net worth.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka Young. And we're so glad you're joining us today.
All right, y'all, let's get into it.
Hey, babe. How you doing?
I'm doing outstanding.
Oh, that's a powerful.
Outstanding.
Is that a song?
Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm.
Or you?
Girl, you knocked me out.
Hey, I like that part.
Oh, let me stop. I'm tripping, people. I'm doing good today.
Good. And stick to your day job too, babe.
Look, don't be no hater, because I put the vocals down.
You attempt and you make songs of your own. You have been known to make a song or two about anything. And so that keeps life interesting. So thank you.
I'm not making no money off of it yet, but if there's somebody out there on YouTube that wants to, sponsor an up-and-comer.
Have Chris do a jingle. You going to do a jingle, babe?
No, I'm not doing no jingle.
Okay, all right.
We know the jingle man.
Oh,
the jingle man, you know who you are out there.
No. So today we're gonna talk about one of your favorite subjects, and
I think this is it's kind of a serious topic.
Yeah, it's been a long time
bit,
coming
yeah.
though. We have this list, so I'm gonna pull the curtain back a little bit. We have an ongoing list of topics for our podcast, and we have those so that we never get to the point where we're like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna talk about? Well, we always have something to talk about. We like talking, and when we come up with something, we just put it on that list.
But I think more importantly, we hear you guys because we had a listener, a viewer, drop a comment saying they wanted to hear more about estate planning and why it matters. And so we appreciate you sharing that with us. And it is important because I think in our community, especially the Black community, you don't hear people talk about estate planning and why it's important because a lot of people don't think that they need it. Yeah. They don't think they have enough assets or they don't understand it. And so I think it's a topic that's important. To me, it was something that we actually practice. We have an estate plan. And it's something that I think people need to learn more about and then begin to put things in place to protect you and your assets, because I believe that everybody who's listening and viewing, you are growing your assets.
That's right.
You are building your net worth.
We want to see more of our listeners, followers, watchers increase their net worth, because it's all about getting better and increasing your net worth, right?
That's right.
For better and worth.
That's right. The podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship
while you
grow and build your net worth.
worth.
And so we want to see you guys build your net worth.
Yeah.
And as you build that, it comes with the need to do effective estate planning.
Yeah.
Now, I think before we get into this, we have to let you guys know that we are not attorneys by no stretch of the imagination.
So this is the disclaimer. Everything that you hear today is subject to your own personal circumstances. So make sure that you seek the services of a qualified professional.
A licensed professional, an attorney, because to do an effective estate plan, you need to have an attorney that probably focuses on estate plan.
That's right.
And as we get into it, I'm not talking about, the prepaid legal through work, even though that's how we started.
That is literally how we started, because we didn't have the money for an estate plan.
Yeah, so
we were very intentional in signing up for prepaid legal through work, which was less than $20 a month.
I'm not gonna hate on it because that helped get us started.
Absolutely.
And so it's okay to get started with that. But then you may have to, go and seek out the advice of.
It was a couple dollars every month. And then I think we had to add to it for a few things. But other than that,
Right.
it was a great way to get started with estate planning. So, shameless plug, if that is something that you have available at work, that might be a way for you to get started too.
Yeah. But I think, just jumping into it, I think a lot of people really delay going and setting up an estate plan because, I just think people don't feel like it matters or that they need it or why they need to get into it.
I
And
think people are also like, I'm too young for this. I'm too young because I looked it up and most people don't start estate planning or at least beginning with a will or a trust of some nature, having a conversation with somebody until they're over 55.
yeah, that's too
55.
late.
And life happens, crap happens. We don't want it to happen, but most people don't even start this conversation until they feel like they're halfway
Hmm.
through life.
And I think people plan and they have insurance should something happen, life insurance, health insurance, car insurance, home.
Hmm.
You have all these other protections in place. From the time you buy a home, you're required to have home insurance. You
Right.
buy a car, you're required to have
Auto
auto
insurance.
insurance.
Yeah.
And so, why would you not want to protect the assets that you're building and that you're accumulating over time with an estate plan?
And honestly, and if you're leaving people behind, let's just talk about it. Like, they need to know what to do with all that you have accumulated or just the goods that you have. So, effective planning to me is a love letter to those that you leave behind. So that's important.
I think that's part of the procrastination is that people don't want to estate plan or they don't get into it because it involves talking about death.
Okay.
It involves
Yes.
talking about, planning for someone's transition.
Yeah.
And it's like, we start talking about the fear associated with it. But I think that is really one of the things that kind of halts people
Hmm.
from doing effective estate planning because they're like, well, man, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to think about that. I don't really want to address that right now. When I think you're doing a disservice. Me as a husband, I would feel like I was doing a disservice to you and to our children if I didn't effectively plan to what would happen after I were to transition.
Yeah.
And then I could make sure my wishes are known
Yeah.
up front. So
Yeah.
then somebody's not trying to figure out, well, what would he want to do or what would he want us to do? And then I can make that known on the front side. So
Yeah.
you tell me some of the fears that you were having or some of the thoughts that you were having, when we started talking about estate planning.
Yeah. I will say I don't know that I wouldn't say I was afraid of death. Like I don't think that's a concern of mine. Cuz quite frankly I know where I'm going. You know what I mean? So I know that doesn't make it super duper easy, but kind of know where I'm going. So, but I want to have this is a spoiler alert. We're not getting out alive. None of us get out alive, okay? Like the way that this all ends for all of us is
Right.
that
You're not taking any of this stuff with you.
death comes, okay? And I think the thing that I'm seeing more and more, there's a couple people that I follow. There's a financial influencer, there's another woman who I just learned of recently that her husband passed away. I I'm thankful that people share their truth. But what concerns me as a woman is that I have seen at least three people in the last couple of years that I am not in necessary relationship with, but they are influencers out there on social and they've lost their spouses. And the very first thing that a lot of them end up saying is, gosh, I got to get my estate plan together because we did not, as a couple, have it together. And that's scary to
Hmm.
me. And I think a lot of women who are widows have not prepared themselves for that possibility. You, as a man, you have always been the type of man who wants to provide and wants to make sure that things are taken care of. And I think that is one of the things that made estate planning so important to you. And I'm thankful for that because you plan even though it's not comfortable. But a lot of women don't do that. And they
Yeah.
have gone back and they're like, I wish, I wish, I wish. And that is not what I desire for my
You don't want that to
children
be
or
you don't
for
want that to
you.
be your story. And
Yeah.
I just feel I've always been a planner. I've always felt like to be a responsible person, you have to effectively plan. You have to think forward. You have to be strategic. And I'm always a visionary.
Yeah.
And part of me being a visionary is saying, okay, if something should happen, I've worked these years. I want my family to be provided for, and I want some say in how things are going to be done as they continue on,
Yeah.
if I'm not here. And in our estate plan, I set up that prenup. Holla
A
at your boy.
Cause you know what? Let me just say this. Okay, brass tacks. Now,
But
I'm
then
not a
you did have a prenup
I'm
clause
not
in there as well.
I am not planning to die anytime soon. I think I'll be here for a long time. But if something should happen, everything that I have worked for with this man, for my family, for my children, for us, will not be going to some other chick when I go, which means she can't have none of the money. Okay? Let me just be clear.
And now
That is in my will,
and
y'all.
now I have an out. I mean, well, my deceased wife.
So therefore,
She wanted this prenup.
exactly. And guess what? You know what? If he doesn't ever get married again, that's okay. That's okay. Because I done got him on clank clank, even from the grave. Okay?
It's fun. You wild. You wild. Let's bring it back. Okay.
But you know what? See, but I love him and I love my kids. And that is who the dollars are for. If something
Yes.
should happen to the both of us, our money should go to our kids and not be split with some new entity that didn't
It's
build
about
this.
creating
Right?
generational wealth. So
Right.
So I think we talked about a little bit of the procrastination and people don't think they have enough assets or they don't think it's for them. They think it's only for rich people.
Yeah.
And that's so far from the truth. If you are a working person and if you have a home, you have a retirement, you have other assets or things that you want to pass on specifically to people, you can name things in your trust. And so just talking a little bit about
Let's give them the two things we're gonna talk about.
okay.
Wills and trusts. Let's just keep it simple. Estate planning can encompass a lot more,
Yes.
right? But specifically,
Wills and trusts.
we're going to discuss some wills and trusts and why each of those might be important. So,
Yeah.
you want to start us off with the trust itself and what that is?
Well, I think most people are familiar with a will, but a will only goes so far.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the trust, you get better protections of your assets because the trust, when you effectively set up a trust and fund it by, signing everything over to the trust.
So your home, your vehicles, business assets, that kind of thing.
Yeah, accounts are all owned by the trust. And you as an executor have access to everything within the trust. But I think it's better protection. It helps you pass outside of probate. So if you've accumulated any sort of wealth, the government won't tax you at death and take a portion of your estate away, which I don't believe they should.
Right.
The trust helps protect that. So you pass outside of probate. And sometimes if you have a will in place and you have a small amount of assets, my mom passed away a few years ago, and her estate was able to pass outside of probate because it was at a smaller level. So though she didn't have a will and she didn't have a trust, it was small enough where it passed outside of probate.
It made it
we
easy.
didn't have to
That
pay
part was
additional
easier.
taxes and stuff like that. And that's why we say you got to talk to a professional because some of the things around wills and trusts can become, complicated, but a good attorney will explain it to you.
Yeah.
Step
in
by
layman's
step,
terms.
and make sure that you understand what it is before you go and put it in place.
Yeah.
But we just think that it is so important.
He was adamant like years back. I was like, why do you care so much about this silly trust? And that's when, honestly, for me, I had to say, this is important to him, therefore it's important to me.
Mm-hmm.
That is a version of what submission looks like, right? Like he really wanted this, and I was like, it's not detrimental. It's actually helpful. Okay, that's fine. I won't be a deterrent, if that makes sense. And you mentioned it, that trusts help you to pass outside of probate, which saves on taxes, but it also can save you time. It also
Yeah,
means that
true.
the estate itself can be settled more
Yeah,
quickly,
definitely.
right? And so it's grieving is tough, and going through that process and feeling like you have to navigate, maneuver, do jumping jacks, backflips, and all of this in order to get things done. Which you still had to do a little bit of that with your mom's estate. You still had to be organized,
Mm-hmm.
and you still had to make sure that
It
you were in
wasn't
communication.
easy.
Right. It took some time anyway. It might have, we didn't have any taxes to deal with on that behalf, but um, it still took time.
I
And
think, look, let's be honest. I think a trust helps mitigate disputes
yes,
because if you have, siblings or, like we have children, but if there were other people who wanted to make a claim on the estate, a trust helps mitigate all of that.
you have all of your wishes
So,
defined.
right. So it's like, no, if you're not named in the trust, then you out of luck.
Yeah, and you mentioned like the children. So that was one of the bigger things too, and why we set one up is because we wanted, if something were to happen to the both of us, I'm not exactly sure. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the first time that we went on a trip after we had children, I want to say is when we went to Hawaii for our 10-year anniversary.
And we started thinking like, well, wait a minute.
What if something happened to us?
We're both gone and the
Yeah.
kids are there. What if a freak accident happened and
Yes.
we didn't make it back? We were like, oh,
That's why we need it. So I really think that's when we actually finished setting it up, or really made sure that we had it together. But it is important for people to manage the money the way you want it to, for the
right,
benefit of your kids.
right.
And there are many ways. We don't have to get into all of the ways, but there are many ways that you can do that, and a good professional will help you. But that is a real important reason. And I've also had clients who set up special needs trusts. They have children who have special needs,
Mm-hmm.
and should something happen to the parent or the primary caregiver, you want to ensure that you have dollars set aside
For
with
caregiving.
instructions on how
Yeah.
things are to be carried out, and then you have a person who carries them out.
Yeah, I think we've gone through now. Now, a good lawyer will tell you if a will is enough for you,
Yes.
or if you need to take the next step
Right.
and do a trust. And it will have something to do with the number of assets that you have, the types of accounts that you have, whether a will be good enough, or if you do need to take that next step and get a trust, because most trusts will include a will.
That's the key. I think everybody needs a will.
Yes.
That
So,
not
yes,
everybody
I would
needs a
agree.
trust,
I
but
would
I
agree.
think everybody needs a will, and it can be very simple.
Yes.
Do you remember the first time we did a will?
I think we went and found some software.
We did a
and
software.
We did our will, and we were like, okay, this is it. Put it in an envelope.
Yep.
And we had it, and we gave it to somebody else. Said, hey, if something happens to us, here's our will. And then we just got, we moved forward. Then we got
Yeah.
a trust and did the
Because you
same
can
thing.
start there. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like Quicken Lawyer. It was something like that. It was just like a $50 tool, and then you just
Right.
get a notary to sign it once you've put all your wishes in there. But I think it is wisdom to ensure that you share your needs.
What your wants are.
Yeah.
Because let's say you didn't have kids and you just had, you worked, for years, and you'd saved in a 401k, or you had a house, or you had a car. You could designate in a will, hey, this is where I want my 401k funds to go, because you're going to have a beneficiary. So the beneficiary will reap the benefits of, those funds that will be dispersed at your demise. But then you could also name other things in there. If you had things that
A paid off car, for
yeah,
instance.
things that are of value, you could say, I
Yeah.
want this to go to this person. Or if you want to do something charitable, you can name that in the will. The trust is like the trust is like an umbrella that covers
Yeah.
the will.
Yeah, and protects it from the taxes,
Right.
the timing, and it
Keeps
gives
it dry.
Yeah, and yeah, that's a good way to put it. And then it also gives the instruction on any minor children
Yes.
if you have that need.
Yeah, so
So
I would just say this, like before we go on, and anybody who's listening or watching this, they say, "Well, I don't know if I need this." I say, go talk to a lawyer because first of all, we think everybody needs a will,
yeah,
and they will help you understand more specifically the differences between just having a will and having a trust. Because I'll be honest, when you get into the trust area, it requires a little bit more work.
it a lot more
Yeah,
work.
because you've got you can't just set it up and then not do the things required to fund it.
Yeah,
Because funding a trust means that you have to change the name on accounts, you have to change the names on deeds, you have to do some work
a
on
trust is
your
no
part.
good if it isn't funded. A trust
Right.
is empty. So it, like you said, it's an umbrella, but you have to bring the assets underneath it. So you have to bring the
Yes.
home, bring the car, bring the business, bring the
They're
dollars
all under that
under
trust
the
umbrella.
umbrella. If you don't do that, it's an
It's
empty
a waste
trust
of
will do
time and
nothing.
money.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Right. It's
Matter
a
of fact,
waste of
say that
time.
again, baby.
It would be a waste of time and money if you don't take the extra, well, not even extra, the necessary steps to fund it.
Perfect.
And that's why I said at the beginning, this may sound a little serious to people, but I think people need to be talking about this.
Yeah.
Because, we talk about save and, build wealth and hey, we're going to do all this, but then you don't do the work.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to talk about it, but who's going to be about it?
Seriously. And here's the thing, you have to update it. And I think that's where you and I have had to have an attorney who was on top of it, because it's really easy to not update your plan. So we had a will, for instance, we had a will and a trust when we were in Arizona, and we moved to Indiana, had a different house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for a couple of years, our home wasn't underneath the umbrella of the trust, right? And so you've got to. So when your circumstance,
Life gets busy
life
and you
change,
forget.
yeah. And then when our kids have become of age, where I wouldn't say that they would necessarily need a guardian, right? Those things change as well.
Right.
So life necessitates updating your estate plan, because quite frankly, again, if you don't have everything laid out the way you want it to for the season of life that you're in, then it's not going to help you.
I think one of the cool things about a trust was that you could name uh, times that your children would receive disbursements from your estate. So we had kids, and we were like, okay, at this age they will get this percent.
Right.
At this next milestone age, they get another percent. And then we would say at, the final disbursement will be, when they're 35 or whatever. But, they would have matured. They had time to develop good habits. And you can set all those parameters with a trust versus like a will, boom, you go, boom, it drops it on their front doorstep. And you like, do you trust that at that stage in life? Hopefully we all live full lives, but whatever stage you should pass on, at that stage in life, are your kids prepared?
Right.
And if they're young and they're not prepared, do you have someone who you would trust, who won't take advantage of them or the situation? And that's the good thing about a trust is you have, someone who
A guardian
be your personal representative should you
Right.
not be there, and you can determine who that person is. So you put someone in that position that you trust.
And I would say that the guardian is not the same as the personal representative.
Yes.
Right. So so you can, again, these are all things you can designate. And so when you get into it, it's actually quite interesting, I think, because not only do you get to plan for what happens in life, but you get to leave something special for your family so that they aren't guessing what it is that you desire. I think if people guess, if they have to
Yeah.
guess about what it is that you want, then that can lead to a lot of drama and turmoil in families. And so,
Look, shout out. We have a great lawyer.
we actually
Like
do.
she is
She
the
is on
bomb.
top of it.
I've
Okay.
referred people to her, and I've said, look, if you need to get your trust life together, go see her because she is
Yeah.
no joke.
Yeah, and the way
She
she
gets it
sets it
done.
up, it honestly makes it easy. So I think that if we're really trying to be on top of our financial game, this is a critical piece to understanding how that your assets, if they outlive you, and hopefully that's the case,
Hmm.
how you want to distribute that and make it easy for other people to pass that same generous spirit and or carry out the wishes that you have.
And we talk about creating generational wealth. And in creating generational wealth, that means that there is something that will supersede your passing. So
Mm-hmm.
it'll be something that is left that will go on beyond you, that creates a legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to create legacy, you got to make sure that you continue to have something available. And to have something available, you have to have people that you trust and
Mm-hmm.
people that are going to be able to continue to carry out the vision that you may have, that you're passing the torch on to them. And then that vision takes root and lights fire in them.
Mm-hmm.
Then they set up a trust and they use the resource. And this is my hope for our children, that they will have learned from us over the years. And then when we go on and we leave whatever it is here, they're like, look, I want to be good stewards
Mm-hmm.
of, what mom and dad have done. And I want to do the same thing with my kids. Then they wash, rinse, repeat.
Yeah, I would say that I found it interesting when you mentioned one day, by the time we pass, our kids could be senior citizens.
Right.
And when you think about that,
They
it's
should
like,
have their own money.
exactly. You don't need my money. You gonna have your own money. And so
Right.
again, that's a different phase. Maybe there are other things that you change and
Right.
adjust in your plan, right? One of the things that I'm very
It's funny though.
Yeah.
Before you go on, it's funny because the age gap between me and our youngest is 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm 90, she's 60. I'm like, you're retiring.
You don't need
You about to be a retiree.
you don't need this. You know?
Like, but then it's like, okay, well maybe we adjust the trust
Yeah.
and we leave it to grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
But if she's 60, she could have 30-year-old. I got 30-year-old grandchildren.
Yeah.
So then maybe I leave it to great grandchildren.
But you can also do other things. I mean, I
You
see
can leave it to charities.
I
or-
see us having our own foundation so that we can give scholarships to children. I see
Absolutely.
us being
to
able
go
to
to college.
give larger sums to the churches that have poured into our lives. I see lots of different things. And here's the deal. I see that, but my kids might not see that for the dollars that we have saved. And if I don't put it in writing, or if I don't set it up properly for that to occur, then
They may
they
say, I'm
won't
60,
know.
but I'm
They
buying
won't
a
know.
nicer car.
Yeah, I mean, they will do
I'm
whatever it
buying a
is they
bigger
feel.
house.
Right. And so that's not my wish, right? Like
Yeah.
that's just not my wish. And so while it
Now, my wish is for them to live good.
they
off
gonna
of
be
some
fine.
of-
They gonna be fine. Okay?
But if she's 60, I'm like, girl, you should have your own money.
Exactly.
We've been
That's what
teaching
I'm
you
saying.
For 50 years.
You the one. See, he the one started it. You the one started it. You the one said you should have your own money at age 65. And then when I get on the bandwagon, you like, but I want to give something to my kids. Well, we will.
They're my babies.
They
you know?
they your babies. But guess what? When they
We-
65, they gonna have families and grandkids that they own. And guess what?
I'll be like, y'all old too.
Yeah, you know what? No. So, but that actually just simply brings up the point that one, I think, is my trust can be different from yours, right?
Yes.
And my wishes can be different from yours. And
Right.
over the seasons of life, there can be changes. We do not have the same trust today that we had when our kids were 15 or 10, right?
Right. Because I
And
can't
so-
have you giving, my vintage cars and firearms to just anybody.
Oh.
I gotta designate where my stuff goes.
Where is it going, babe?
I don't know yet.
Who gonna get it?
I don't know yet. I'm gonna figure it out.
What about your watches, babe? I'm just curious.
You know what? Stay out my stuff. Worry
I'm
about
just-
your stuff.
Because
okay?
you know what? They don't want my stuff. You know what? We don't
They just want your account.
we don't have to talk about goods. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe some diamonds, but other than that, like I
They
don't
be like,
have.
mom, she was so sweet.
She was
She was
sweet,
sweet,
and
but I don't need this stuff.
exactly. Okay. I don't have a lengthy shoe collection. My clothes are not all designer. And I got a couple diamonds.
Look, baby.
But you know,
You look good in all your
hey,
stuff.
come on.
Okay?
Listen, they just want my beautiful smile.
Right. They want your skin, your complexion. Okay.
But
You
anyway.
got stuff to lead them to.
Anyway, you know, but that brings this other thing up. Not everything is valuable. One of the things that is kind of precious to me, and it doesn't matter to you, are my journals. I have written some really, just eye-opening, nothing super deep or anything, but some eye-opening things in some journals, and I've kept them literally all of them. I don't throw them away.
Yeah, and that's important to you, so you can designate.
And so
you can designate where that goes.
how special is that for my kids to be able to read about, how I was feeling when I was 32, you know what I mean? And things like that. And so I don't know. I think it's special, but those are things you can designate inside of a will. Those are things that you can let folks know. Like if it's important to you, then I need this to be important, to the people who are carrying out my wishes. And so it's not just financial, right? It's not just, things that are expensive, and it's not just large sums of money.
It's not just accounts.
Yeah, it is literally what is it that you wish for. And we didn't get into it. There are other parts of estate planning, medical power of attorneys and things like that, but I think that for me, can I jump to make it worth it? Is that okay?
Yeah. Well, before you go there,
Okay,
I would just
okay.
say this. I think the important thing is that we want you to take action.
Yeah.
We want you to start having these conversations. And if you don't feel like you know enough about wills and trusts, we want you to go out and get the knowledge.
Yeah.
Because it is important. Wills and trusts are so important as a component of your financial plan.
Yeah.
And so I just want people to just go and learn.
Right.
And then figure out what is most applicable for you and your situation. Is it a will? Yeah, it probably is a will today. But then in the future, maybe it's a trust. And then maybe it's updating that trust. Or, it evolves. So I think bottom line is just get started. And to me, getting started is getting knowledge and getting education and having the conversation. So
okay. Awesome.
So let's get into that. Make it worth it.
So for me, make it worth it is simply don't see estate planning as complicated or not for you, or that your assets have to be at a certain place. Consider it a love letter to those that you leave behind, and a way that you make your wishes known about the things that you've accumulated, be it wealth, assets, or just something simple that's important to you. And so I think we need to reframe what estate planning is, and also ensure that you remember none of us get out alive. Period.
Well, that was a little morbid.
No, hey, you know what?
It's the truth.
I started off on a more positive note, but when you talk about estate planning, you're literally talking about death. And if we can't talk about it, then we can't get them the information that we shared.
Well, I would say my make it worth it on this is that don't fear the unknown.
Yeah.
People fear what they don't know. Mm-hmm. And there's no need to fear wills and trusts and say, well, it's only for rich people, when it is not. It's for everyone.
Yeah.
And so I go back to my same point. Go and get the knowledge and understanding. That's how you make it worth it, because I love how you call it a love letter to your family. And that sums it up, really, because you want to leave a legacy behind you. And leaving a legacy requires work on your part and work on the front side. And though wills may be simpler to start with and trust may be a little more involved, it is worth the time, the effort, and any work that is associated with it.
Yeah.
So do the right thing for your family and go and get your knowledge up.
Yeah, absolutely. This was
So-
good. I'm so glad we finally got to it because,
Yes.
you know, we want you to grow and build your net worth, and sometimes that comes with more responsibility, and that's okay.
Look, and as you hear our podcasts and YouTubes, if there's something you want to hear, drop it in the comments. Let us know. We check those. We
Yeah,
respond.
We do.
And we will try and work it in so we make sure that you continue to grow and you build and grow your relationship and you build and grow your net worth.
Yes.
So, until next time,
We're out.
thank you for spending some of your time with us today.
We appreciate all of your support. So be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
You can find us on Instagram at For Better and Worth.
And sign up to receive our free guide, The 7 Reasons Your Money Relationship Isn't Working with Your Partner, on forbetterandworth.com.
Until next time, we're out of here.